My oyster mushroom oracle. Answers to the 30 most pressing questions that I had about oyster mushroom cultivation and growing. Of course, stepping into the world of mushroom cultivation is like unlocking a secret door to a hidden realm. It's filled with wonder, but also with questions that can feel as mysterious as the mushrooms themselves. Here are the most burning questions I had when I started growing oyster mushrooms. I am providing their answers. You never know, they might light your path. Are oyster mushrooms hard to grow? Not at all. In the kingdom of fungi, oyster mushrooms are the sprinters. They are vigorous, fast-growing, and incredibly forgiving of beginner mistakes. Compared to many other gourmet or medicinal mushrooms, they are the most rewarding and reliable place to start your mycological journey. I have tried growing reishi mushrooms and lion's mane mushrooms with minimal success. What's the absolute easiest way to start? Getting or buying a ready-to-fruit mushroom grow kit is the best way to start growing mushrooms. These kits are a block of fully colonized substrate, just waiting for the right conditions to produce mushrooms. They remove all the complex steps of sterilization and inoculation, giving you a foolproof entry point and the thrill of your first harvest in as little as 2 weeks. Can I really grow them inside my apartment or house? Absolutely. Oyster mushrooms are the perfect indoor crop. They don't need sunlight, only a small amount of indirect light to know which way is up. A spare closet, a corner of your basement, or even a spot in your kitchen can become a miniature fungal farm. What do I need to buy to get started? For a simple kit, you need nothing but a spray bottle and a knife. If you want to start from scratch, the next level, you'll need oyster mushroom spawn, the seed, a substrate, like straw or sawdust, coffee husks, banana leaves, cotton husks, a large pot for pasteurization, and a clear plastic tub or bag to create a humid growing chamber. How long does it take from start to first harvest? The speed is what makes them so exciting. From the day you introduce your spawn to the substrate, you can expect to see your first pins, baby mushrooms, in 1 to 3 weeks. From pinning to a full, harvestable cluster is often just another 5 to 7 days. What is this white fuzzy stuff all over my substrate block? That's the magic! That beautiful, white, thread-like network is the mycelium, the actual organism of the mushroom. Think of it as the root system, and the mushrooms themselves are its fruit. Healthy mycelium is aggressive and white. If you see green, black, or pink fuzzy spots, that is mold, and it's a sign of contamination. Why are my mushrooms growing long stems with tiny or no caps? This is the single most common problem, and the answer is almost always a lack of fresh air exchange, FAE. High CO2 levels tell the mycelium to keep searching for fresh air instead of fruiting. Your mushrooms are literally reaching for the air they're desperate for. Solution: fan your growing chamber more often, or cut a larger hole and add a stronger exhaust fan. How much light do they really need? Very little. They don't use light for energy like plants. They use it as a directional cue. A simple 12-hour on, 12-hour off cycle of indirect light from a window or a cheap daylight LED bulb is all they need to form beautiful, properly oriented caps. How often should I be misting them? Mist the walls of your chamber and the air around your mushrooms, but try not to soak the mushrooms or the block directly. The goal is to maintain high humidity, 85 to 95%. You'll know you're misting enough if the caps look moist and healthy, but not wet. If they are, back off a little. If the edges are cracking, mist more. What is the best substrate to use? Oysters are not picky eaters, which is why they're so great. The most common and effective substrates are pasteurized straw and hardwood sawdust supplemented with a little bran or gypsum. Straw is cheap and easy for beginners, while sawdust often yields more, denser mushrooms. What does pinning mean? Pinning is the magical moment when tiny baby mushrooms first erupt from the mycelium. They look like little pins or nails. This is the signal that your environmental conditions, humidity, FAE, light, are perfect, and the main event is about to begin. The temperature in my house fluctuates. Is that okay? Oysters are tolerant, but they thrive in consistency. The ideal range is 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 to 24 degrees Celsius. If your house gets much colder, growth will slow dramatically. If it gets much hotter, they can get stressed and abort. Try to find a spot in your home with the most stable temperature. When is the perfect time to harvest? The moment of perfection is just as the edges of the cap begin to flatten out, but before they start to curl up dramatically. If you wait too long, they will begin to drop a fine dust of spores, which can make your harvest taste bitter and create a mess. How do I harvest them without damaging the block? Don't pull them. Gently twist and pull the entire cluster off the block at its base. If some bits remain, you can cut them off with a sterile knife. Harvesting the whole cluster at once encourages the next flush of mushrooms to emerge more evenly. Will they grow back after I harvest them? Yes. This is one of the great joys of oyster cultivation. A healthy block will produce multiple flushes of mushrooms. After your first harvest, soak the block in water overnight to rehydrate it, then return it to your growing chamber. You can expect 2 to 4 more flushes, though each one will be slightly smaller than the last. How do I store my fresh harvest? The best way is to keep them in a paper bag in the refrigerator. The paper bag allows them to breathe, absorbing excess moisture and keeping them from getting slimy. Stored this way, they will last for about a week. Can I eat the substrate block? No. The substrate is the food source for the mycelium, not food for you. It's essentially a block of decomposing straw or sawdust. Once it's spent, its job is done. Why are the edges of my mushroom caps cracking or looking dry? This is a classic sign of low humidity. The air is too dry, and the mushrooms are losing moisture faster than they can absorb it. Solution: increase your misting frequency, check for drafts, and ensure your chamber is holding humidity effectively. What do I do with the block after it stops producing mushrooms? That spent block is not garbage. It's black gold. It's full of organic matter and fungal nutrients. You can crumble it into your outdoor garden compost pile, bury it in your garden beds to enrich the soil, or even use it as a top dressing mulch for your plants. Are the oysters I grew myself safe to eat? Yes, as long as they look, smell, and feel like a healthy oyster mushroom. They should have a pleasant, earthy, or anise-like smell. If you ever grow a mushroom that is slimy, has a foul odor, or has signs of colorful mold, the rule is simple. When in doubt, throw it out. But with a clean grow, your homegrown oysters will be the safest and most delicious you've ever tasted. Of course, the journey into mycology is one of endless discovery. Just when you think you have it figured out, the fungi present you with new mysteries. The first 20 questions are the foundation, but here are 10 more burning questions that arise as you delve deeper into the fascinating world of oyster cultivation. My block is turning blue. Is it dying? Don't panic. Blue bruising on the mycelium or the base of the mushrooms is a stress reaction, not a sign of death or contamination. It's often caused by physical shock, like bumping or dropping the block, dehydration, or sudden temperature changes. Think of it like a bruise on an apple. While it indicates the mycelium is stressed, it will often recover and continue to fruit just fine. Try to handle your blocks gently and maintain consistent conditions. Can I really use coffee grounds as a substrate? Yes, but with a major caveat. Fresh coffee grounds are a fantastic food source for oysters, which is why this is such a popular tip. However, they are also a perfect breeding ground for trichoderma, green mold. To use them successfully, you must use them immediately after brewing, before they get moldy, and they should be pasteurized or sterilized. For beginners, straw or sawdust is far more forgiving and less prone to contamination. What is this weird brown or yellow liquid dripping from my block? That's called mycelial metabolite. It's essentially a waste product or defense mechanism produced by the mycelium, often in response to stress, competition, or simply as a byproduct of heavy digestion. A small amount is normal. However, if you see a lot of it pooling, it can be a sign of bacterial contamination or that the block is too wet. You can gently dab it away with a paper towel to prevent it from suffocating the mycelium underneath. Are the mushroom spores dangerous to breathe in? This is a very important safety question. For most people in a well-ventilated area, the spore load from a small home grow is not a major issue. However, inhaling a massive concentration of any spore can trigger allergic reactions or respiratory irritation, similar to farmer's lung, in sensitive individuals. It's always wise to harvest your mushrooms just before or just as they begin to drop their spores heavily. If you are growing a large quantity, consider wearing a simple N95 mask during harvest. Can I clone a mushroom from the grocery store? Absolutely. This is one of the most exciting, mad scientist things you can do. You can take a small, clean piece of the inside of a fresh oyster mushroom stem, not the cap, and place it on a sterile agar plate to grow out a pure culture. From there, you can transfer that culture to grain to create your own spawn. It's a more advanced technique, but it allows you to replicate a particularly delicious or vigorous mushroom you found at the market. Why are my mushrooms so small and fuzzy? A fuzzy or bearded appearance on the cap or stem is often a genetic trait, but it can also be a response to very high humidity and low air movement. They are producing extra hairs to try and wick moisture away from their bodies. If they are also very small, the culprit is likely a combination of factors. Not enough fresh air exchange, FAE, and or the substrate running out of available nutrients. Try fanning more often and ensure your block has enough food and water to support a large flush. What's the difference between spawn and grain? This is a common point of confusion. Grain, like rye or millet, is just the food. Spawn is grain that has been inoculated with mycelium and is fully colonized, turning it into a solid white block. Think of it this way. Grain is the soil, and spawn is the seed. You don't plant plain grain. You plant seed. You use spawn to plant or inoculate your larger substrate, like straw or sawdust. Can I grow different types of oyster mushrooms together in the same chamber? You can, but you shouldn't grow them on the same block. Different oyster species, like blue, pink, and pearl, have slightly different ideal temperature ranges and fruiting times. If you mix their spawn on one block, the fastest, most aggressive one will usually take over and dominate the entire substrate, crowding out the others. However, keeping separate blocks of different types in the same growing chamber works just fine. Do I have to cook oyster mushrooms? Can I eat them raw? While you technically can eat oyster mushrooms raw, you absolutely shouldn't. Like all mushrooms, they contain chitin in their cell walls, a tough compound that is difficult for humans to digest. Cooking breaks down the chitin, releasing the mushroom's full nutritional value and flavor and making it much easier on your stomach. Raw oysters can also harbor bacteria. Always cook them. Why are they called oyster mushrooms? The name is wonderfully literal. If you look at many oyster mushroom species, especially the blue oyster, their shape is remarkably similar to the shell of an oyster. Their fan-like, layered growth pattern on wood or logs is also reminiscent of an oyster bed. It's a simple, descriptive name that has stuck for centuries.